A vote that counts? Or does it? Have you ever wondered how it's possible for a presidential candidate to win the popular vote but still lose the election? It's a perplexing scenario that has left many voters scratching their heads and questioning the fairness of the system. It might sound strange, but it's happened, not once but 5 times in US history. These instances have sparked intense debates and controversies, leading to calls for reform and a deeper understanding of the electoral process. This is all thanks to a system called the Electoral College, a unique feature of the American electoral process that often leaves people scratching their heads. It's a system that can seem convoluted and outdated, yet it remains a cornerstone of how the US elects its presidents. The Electoral College is a bit like a political middleman, standing between the American people and their choice for president. It was designed to balance the influence of smaller states against larger ones, but its effectiveness and fairness are hotly debated. It's a system that's been praised by some and criticized by others, sparking heated debates about its fairness and relevance in the 21st century. Some argue it protects the interests of smaller states, while others believe it undermines the principle of one person, one vote. In this deep dive, we'll unpack the complexities of the Electoral College, exploring its history, its mechanics, and the arguments for and against its continued use. We'll look at how it was conceived, how it has evolved, and the impact it has had on past elections. Understanding the Electoral College is crucial for every American citizen. It's not just about knowing the rules of the game, it's about understanding the very foundation of American democracy and how power is distributed within it. It's about more than just knowing the rules of the game. It's about comprehending the very foundation of American democracy and how power is distributed within it. This knowledge empowers citizens to engage more effectively in the democratic process and advocate for changes they believe in. So buckle up as we embark on this journey to unravel one of the most fascinating and controversial aspects of the US electoral system. We'll travel through history, examine key moments, and hear from experts on both sides of the debate. By the end, you'll be well equipped to form your own opinion about whether the Electoral College is a relic of the past or a vital safeguard for American democracy. You'll have the tools to engage in informed discussions and contribute to the ongoing conversation about the future of this pivotal institution. The story of the Electoral College starts way back in 1787, with the framers of the US Constitution. These were the visionaries who laid the foundation for what would become one of the most influential democracies in the world. These guys, in their powdered wigs and knee-high socks, were faced with the Herculean task of creating a system of government for a brand new nation. They had to consider every detail, from the balance of power to the rights of the individual. When it came to electing a president, they had a lot on their plates. The stakes were incredibly high, and the decisions they made would shape the future of the nation. They grappled with big questions. Should the president be chosen by popular vote, by Congress, or by some other method altogether? Each option had its own set of challenges and implications. There were concerns about giving too much power to the people or to the government. They feared that a direct popular vote might lead to the tyranny of the majority, while letting Congress choose could result in corruption and undue influence. This was, after all, a time when democracy was still a pretty new concept. The idea of giving power to the people was revolutionary and fraught with uncertainty. The Electoral College emerged as a compromise, a way to balance the interests of different states and ensure that no single state or region could dominate the presidential election. It was a delicate balancing act, designed to protect the Union. Remember, back then, communication and travel were a tad slower than a tweet or a cross-country flight. News traveled at the speed of a horse, and decisions took time. The idea was to create a system where each state would have a say in the election, proportional to its population, but with some safeguards built in. This way, smaller states wouldn't be overshadowed by larger ones. It was a way to ensure that the president would have to appeal to voters across a broad swath of the country, not just in a few populous areas. This system aimed to create a more unified and representative government, reflecting the diverse interests of the American people. Okay, let's break down how this whole Electoral College thing actually works. Imagine the presidential election as a giant nationwide game of capture the flag, but instead of flags, we're talking about something called electoral votes. Each state gets a certain number of these votes, kind of like points in a game. The number of electoral votes a state gets is equal to the number of senators, always 2, plus the number of representatives it has in Congress. This means that states with larger populations like California and Texas get more electoral votes than states with smaller populations, like Wyoming or Vermont. On election day, when you cast your vote for president, you're actually voting for a group of people called electors who are pledged to support your chosen candidate. It's like choosing your champion to fight for you in the Electoral College arena. These electors are chosen by each state's political parties, so they're usually pretty hardcore party loyalists. In most states, it's a winner-take-all system, meaning whichever candidate wins the popular vote in a state gets all of that state's electoral votes. Section 4. Electors, you're up. The pivotal role of human choice. Now you might be thinking, if the people are voting for electors and those electors are supposed to vote for the winner of the popular vote in their state, then what's the big deal? Well, here's where things get interesting. The Electoral College isn't just a mathematical formula, it involves actual human beings who have the power to make their own choices. In most cases, electors vote for the candidate they're pledged to. But there have been instances where electors have gone rogue and voted for someone else. These are called faithless electors, and while they're pretty rare, they can shake things up. The Electoral College system was designed with the idea that electors would act as a kind of safeguard, a group of wise individuals who could step in and prevent a truly unqualified or dangerous person from becoming president. However, in practice, electors are often chosen for their party loyalty rather than their independent judgment. The existence of electors and the possibility of faithless electors adds an element of uncertainty to the presidential election. It means that even if a candidate wins the popular vote, they're not guaranteed to win the presidency. Section 5. Winner takes all, not so fast, understanding the state-by-state battleground. Here's another wrinkle in the Electoral College fabric. The way electors are chosen can vary significantly from state to state, adding layers of complexity to the process. Because each state gets to decide how its electors are chosen, there's a lot of variation from state to state. This means that the rules governing the Electoral College are not uniform across the country. Most states use a winner-take-all system where the candidate who wins the most votes in that state gets all of its electoral votes. This method simplifies the process but can also lead to some interesting strategic decisions by the campaigns. But there are 2 states, Maine and Nebraska, that do things a bit differently. They break away from the winner-take-all tradition. They use a system called the Congressional District Method, where electoral votes are awarded based on the winner of each congressional district within the state, plus 2 electoral votes for the winner of the statewide popular vote. This method can lead to a more nuanced distribution of electoral votes. This system means that a candidate could theoretically win some electoral votes in a state, even if they don't win the statewide popular vote. It introduces a level of granularity that can make elections more competitive. It's like winning a few mini-battles within the larger electoral war. Campaigns must strategize not just for the state as a whole, but for individual districts as well. The winner-take-all system, while simpler, has been criticized for giving too much weight to swing states, those states where the vote is often very close. This can skew the focus of national campaigns. These swing states become the focus of intense campaigning and media attention, while voters in states that are considered safe bets for one party or the other might feel like their votes don't matter as much. This can lead to feelings of disenfranchisement among voters in non-swing states, who may feel overlooked in the electoral process. Section 6. The Electoral College on Trial, a history of controversies and close calls. The Electoral College hasn't exactly been a quiet observer in American history. It's been at the center of some pretty intense controversies, sparking debates about its fairness and whether it truly reflects the will of the people. One of the biggest criticisms leveled at the Electoral College is that it can lead to a candidate winning the presidency without winning the popular vote. This has happened 5 times in U.S. history, most recently in 2016, when Hillary Clinton won the popular vote but lost the presidency to Donald Trump. These instances have fueled arguments that the Electoral College is undemocratic and undermines the principle of one person, one vote. Critics argue that it gives too much power to voters in a handful of swing states and disenfranchises voters in states that are considered safe bets for one party or the other. The Electoral College has also been accused of favoring less populous states, and giving them disproportionate influence in presidential elections. While it's true that each state gets at least 3 electoral votes regardless of population, this advantage is offset by the fact that larger states have significantly more electoral votes overall. Section 7. To reform or not to reform? That is the question. Exploring potential changes. Given the ongoing debates surrounding the Electoral College, it's no surprise that there have been numerous attempts to reform or even abolish it altogether. These reform proposals range from moderate tweaks to more radical overhauls of the system. One proposed reform is the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which aims to bypass the Electoral College by having states agree to award all their electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote. This compact would only go into effect if enough states representing a majority of electoral votes sign on. Another reform idea is to abolish the winner-take-all system used in most states and instead award electoral votes proportionally based on the percentage of the popular vote each candidate receives. This would make it more difficult for a candidate to win the presidency without winning the popular vote. However, any attempt to reform or abolish the Electoral College faces significant hurdles. Amending the Constitution requires a supermajority vote in both houses of Congress and ratification by 3/4 of the states, a tall order in today's politically polarized climate.